for Franklin Templeton India AMC Limited. Mr. Kalluri is a co-portfolio manager for Franklin India Prima Fund and Franklin India Smaller Companies Fund. He is also a senior research analyst responsible for providing research support on banks and financials, metals and mid-cap companies. He started his career in Franklin Templeton in 2016. Prior to joining Franklin Templeton, he worked as a research associate covering Indian small and mid-cap stock universe at Credit Suisse, Mumbai. Also, he worked as a senior associate equity research ICICI Securities, Mumbai. Mr. Kalluri has been in the investment management industry since 2011. Mr. Kalluri holds a postgraduate diploma in management specializing in finance from the Indian Institute of Management, Lucknow, 2011. He obtained his BTech from Andhra University, Visakhapatnam, 2008. So, very warm welcome to you, Akhil, once again on this platform. Thank you for sharing your views on the upcoming NFO. Thank you, and over to you, Akhil.
Thank you, Disha. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you everyone for dialing in today to be part of this NFO presentation. Um, I will briefly talk about the Franklin India Multi-Cap NFO, but before that, the way I was thinking about structuring my presentation today is in about 30 to 30 minutes or so. I was planning to cover four broad aspects. First of all, the overall market outlook and why I think the Indian markets have done so well in the past, and why I believe that the Indian markets can actually do reasonably well going forward as well. The reason for positive outlook on Indian market outlook itself. So that is first. Second, and there is this very wide debate about small and mid caps versus large caps. कौन सा अच्छा है, क्या करना चाहिए? So my 2 cents on how I'm thinking about small and mid cap space versus large cap space from both a near term perspective as well as from a medium term perspective. The third thing is why multi-cap, and why we think at Franklin Templeton, why do we think that this is a right time for multi-cap? And finally, why Franklin Templeton multi-cap? कि हम ऐसा special क्या करेंगे? What will be different about Franklin Templeton multi-cap as compared to other multi-cap funds which are already there in the market? So I'll start with the India outlook, and I'm going to start with just the price performance. This chart, बहुत simple chart है. In this chart, all I have done is on a 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, 7 year basis, how have the various markets done. So अगर आप bottom में देखेंगे, at the bottom you'll see the Indian markets. आपको Nifty 50 दिखेगा, then you have Nifty mid cap 150, Nifty small cap 250, and the rest of the markets are various emerging markets and developed markets. Asian markets, Latin markets, Europe में markets ने कैसा किया है? How have the market outlook been on the US side as well, right? Over the last various time horizons, 3 months, 1 year, 3 year, 5 years, 7 years. What is very unique here is India is green. India का performance बहुत अच्छा रहा है over all of these time horizons. Everywhere else, it's a sea of red. There is only one other market which has done well, and that is Nasdaq. Like Nasdaq B, it's about the Magnificent Seven. There are 7 big stocks in Nasdaq which have done very well. अगर आप वो 7 stock हटा के देखें, even Nasdaq has not done very well. The Russell 2000 is US का small cap index, and there you can see कि US में the broader markets have actually not done very well. So what is?
Akhil, I'm really sorry to interrupt in between, but you're not audible to everybody, so just be a little louder.
Sure, sure, absolutely. Is this better now, Disha? Am I audible now?
Yeah, much better. Thank you.
Great. Yeah. So why is it that the Indian markets have done so well when rest of the markets have not done very well? Most of you would know, आपको पता होगा, Franklin Templeton is a very large global AMC, and we have our colleagues who are based out of various emerging markets. We have our colleagues in other Asian markets, in US markets, European markets, etc. So we keep interacting with them to get a typical FII perspective on उनके हिसाब से Indian market ने इतना अच्छा क्यों किया है. We sitting in India have our own worldview, but it's good to understand from a foreigner's perspective what is so special about India and why have the Indian markets done so well. So 4 broad points. Typically I get these 4 broad points. First, growth. If anyone is actually investing in equities, if anyone is actually investing in small and mid caps, the only reason why they do that is for growth. Abhi aap think about it from an FII investor perspective who is based out of, let's say, US. he has a choice to invest in his local markets. वो वहां पे अपने small caps में invest कर सकता है, and he is choosing to invest in emerging markets. So from his perspective, this is almost like a micro cap investing, if I can use that broad analogy. So the only reason why an FII is coming to emerging markets and India is for growth. And globally, कहीं पे growth काफी problem है. So the only pocket, only market जहाँ पे growth दिख रहा है at this particular point in time is India. The growth is quite reasonable in India. Most of the other emerging markets में growth नहीं है, including China. China growth was healthy. If you look at 2000 से 2015 तक चाइना में growth काफी अच्छा था. उसके बाद चाइना का growth has been slowing down. Over the last 3 to 4 years, Chinese growth has been very anemic. So that is the first reason why Indian market is looking very attractive, because this is the only market यहाँ पे growth है. The second reason is inflation. ये आपने काफी सुना होगा पिछले 2-3 साल में कि ग्लोबली इन्फ्लेशन हर जगह पे बढ़ रहा है. तो इफ यू लुक एट द डेटा बिटवीन 2010 से 2020 तक globally inflation used to be very low. 0 to 2% kind of inflation is what the world is used to. महंगाई बहुत कम थी globally. So post COVID inflation went up very dramatically. Inflation 5, 8, 10, 15% तक चला गया. And the moment that happened, it was a problem everywhere else in the world. लेकिन अगर आप इंडिया का देखेंगे तो इंडिया में महंगाई स्टेबल. The inflation in India is 5%. पिछले 10 साल से inflation इंडिया में 5% ही है. So inflation, which is a problem everywhere in the world, is not so much of a problem in India. That is the second thing. First, growth. Second, manageable inflation. Third is balance sheet. और ये इंडिया का बहुत यूनिक है. So typically post GFC, after 2008, one very unique thing happened in the world. दुनिया में हर जगह पे because inflation was low, growth कम था, interest rates काफी नीचे आ गए. So the cost of borrowing was anywhere between 0 to 4% across various markets. जब आपको लोन बहुत सस्ता मिलता है, what is the first thing you do? You take more loans because loans are very cheap. और ग्लोबली हर जगह पे ये हुआ. अगर आप, और ये मैं इंडिविजुअल की बात नहीं कर रहा हूँ, एक कंपनी की बात नहीं कर रहा हूँ, एट ए कंट्री लेवल बता रहा हूँ मैं. तो एट ए कंट्री लेवल पिछले 10 साल में हर कंट्री में डेट बढ़ गया. इंडिया इज यूनिक. इंडिया में पिछले 10 साल में डेट लेवल नहीं बढ़ा. कारण पिछले 10 साल में इंडिया में बहुत सारे प्रॉब्लम्स थे. अगर आप 2015 से 2020 के बीच में, if you think about any bank, every single bank used to only talk about one thing, NPA. कि बहुत ज्यादा NPAs हो गए हैं from a banking system perspective. So banks were not willing to lend. जो borrowers थे, borrowers were not willing to borrow क्योंकि they had problems. There was implementation of IBC, जो bankruptcy code इंडिया में implement किया गया था 2016 में. तो bankruptcy code के बाद क्या हुआ, अगर आपने लोन लिया है और आप लोन टाइम पे नहीं दे पाते हैं, then there is a possibility that the entrepreneur, promoter might have to lose his business, which was never the case earlier. Because of all of these things, from a buyer perspective, from a company perspective, the risk appetite to take loan came down dramatically. किसी को लोन लेना नहीं था. तो banks लोन देने को तैयार नहीं थे, borrowers in general लोन लेने को तैयार नहीं थे. Because of that, पिछले 10 साल में the investments have not happened, जिसकी वजह से debt इंडिया में नहीं बढ़ा, जब हर जगह ग्लोबली बढ़ गया. Now, जैसे मैंने बोला हर जगह ग्लोबली डेट बढ़ गया. पिछले 2-3 साल में अनदर थिंग जो सबने सुना होगा कि इंटरेस्ट रेट्स आर गोइंग अप. वो इंडिया में नहीं, ग्लोबली हर जगह पे इंटरेस्ट रेट्स आर गोइंग अप. सो जब आपने लोन ले लिया, एज्यूमिंग कि इंटरेस्ट रेट 2 या 3% पे रहेगा, एज्यूमिंग 2 to 3% इंटरेस्ट रेट्स यू हैव टेकन लोन्स, एंड सडनली interest rates go up to say 7%, 8%, you will have serious problems. And I think those problems are faced by a lot of countries at this particular point in time. India, from that perspective, is very well placed because we did not take too many loans over the last almost 10 years, and which gives us very good starting point. आज आप बैंक का बैलेंस शीट देखेंगे, बैंक बैलेंस शीट इज क्लीन. अगर आप कॉर्पोरेट्स के बैलेंस शीट देखेंगे, they are very clean, which is a very very good situation to be in, and that is very unique to India. So मैंने बताया पहला था ग्रोथ, दूसरा इन्फ्लेशन, तीसरा बैलेंस शीट. The fourth thing is policy itself. 2 महीने पहले सबके सब इलेक्शन के पहले the only debate was कि इस टाइम एनडीए गवर्नमेंट को कितने सीट मिलेंगे. No one was even thinking about a possibility that the existing government will not come back to power, and that gives a lot of policy continuity. तो जो भी सरकार चीजें कर रही है पिछले 5-10 साल में, all the policies that they are bringing on board, there is expectation that the policies will continue for the next 5 years as well. And that's a very unique situation to be in, because globally there is a lot of geopolitical tensions. अगर आप कोई भी मार्केट देखेंगे, बहुत सारे मार्केट्स में there are problems, including the biggest market in the world, which is US. US के मार्केट में they are going into elections later this year, and no one knows कि वहां पे डेमोक्रेट जीतेंगे या रिपब्लिकन जीतेंगे, वहां पे ट्रम्प की सरकार आएगी या बिडेन की सरकार आएगी, और जो सरकार आएगी उसके हिसाब से पॉलिसीज विल चेंज. So the lack of certainty itself is a problem everywhere else in the world, and that is very unique to India. तो इन 4 चीजों की वजह से मेरे हिसाब से, और जो हमारा इंटरेक्शन रहता है बाकी एफआईआई हमारे इंटरनल लोगों से, इन 4 चीजों के हिसाब से इंडियन मार्केट्स हैव डन सो वेरी वेल ओवर द लास्ट 5 years or 7 years. यहाँ से मार्केट आउटलुक क्या है? तो ये जो 4 चीजें बताई मैंने, ग्रोथ, इन्फ्लेशन, बैलेंस शीट और पॉलिसी, मेरे हिसाब से अगले 5 साल भी all of these things outlook is healthy. The overall macro outlook is healthy. Therefore, our expectation is the market outlook is reasonable going forward as well. In this kind of a market outlook, what are the themes to play? There are a lot of themes that one can play. As an example, मैं एक example बताता हूँ आज आपको. I think ये वाला जो चार्ट है, this is an important chart. ये पिछले 25 साल का चार्ट है. बहुत सिंपल चार्ट है ये. अगर आप किसी भी कंट्री का जीडीपी देखेंगे, in a GDP there are 3 parts: इन्वेस्टमेंट, कंजम्पशन, एक्सपोर्ट. इस चार्ट में मैंने सिर्फ इन्वेस्टमेंट दिखाया है. अगर आप देखेंगे फ्रॉम 2000 to 2010, the share of investments in GDP was continuously increasing. Why? Because this was a period where India was actually investing a lot. Infrastructure में काफी investments हो रहे थे. There were multiple new power plants which are coming up. Real estate was doing very well during this phase. A lot of steel plants were getting built. A lot of manufacturing activity was happening. So that was the 2000 to 2010 phase. Very strong phase from an investment perspective. पिछले 10 साल में barely any investments because of the reasons which I just talked about. बहुत सारे NPAs थे. कंपनी को लोन लेने से दिक्कत थी. They were consolidating. उनको अपना डेट कम करना था, ग्रोथ नहीं करना था उतना ज्यादा. बैंक भी विलिंग नहीं थे टू फंड ग्रोथ. तो पिछले 10 साल में the share of consumption went up. Investment का शेयर कम हो गया. Now post COVID, over the last 2-3 years, there are initial signs ये investment has started to pick up once again. अभी तक जो भी ये पिकअप दिख रहा है आपको, mainly driven by government. There's a lot of government related capex which has happened over the last 2-3 years, which is driving this growth. Our expectation, और अगर आप देखेंगे, these are very long cycles. ये almost 8 से 10 साल के लंबे साइकिल चलते हैं, based on whatever we've seen over the last 25 years. So we are probably in the initial phases of that growth. अभी तक गवर्नमेंट ने किया है. Our expectation is going forward, private sector will also come in, and private sector will also help in driving more investments. The best thing, the cherry on top, is the government policies are very conducive. One example is PLI. ये नाम काफी लोगों ने सुना होगा. PLI means Production Linked Incentives. इसका एक एग्जांपल देता हूँ. सरकार in terms of production linked incentives बहुत सारे sectors को दे रही है. There are multiple sectors in which the government is incentivizing by giving these PLI schemes. I'll take one example. Let's say mobile phones. India, on an average, every year consumes, let's say, around 20 odd crore mobile phones. Let's say the average price is 5,000 rupees. So 20 crore mobile phone, 5,000 रुपए. It's a 1 lakh crore market. 1 लाख करोड़ की इंडस्ट्री है. 5 साल पहले, 5 years back, all the mobile phones in India were imported. इंडिया में hardly anything, बहुत कम मोबाइल फोन मैन्युफैक्चरिंग होता था. The government started offering incentive called PLI, Production Linked Incentives, और assembly of mobile phone की basic चीज assembly इंडिया में कर सकते हैं कि नहीं. So the moment government started giving these incentives, lot of entrepreneurs, बहुत सारे promoters started doing this business. अगर आप आज देखेंगे इंडिया में, to a large extent we are self sufficient. बहुत सारे phones, maximum majority of the phones that we consume in India now are assembled in India. तो ये shift पिछले 5 साल में आया है. Based on government policies and our read of the situation, our expectation is the current government can possibly give more incentives to this, maybe on the component side. जैसे आज मोबाइल फोन असेंबल होता है, बट जो डिस्प्ले पैनल है या जो कैमरा मॉड्यूल है, all of these are imported even today. Our sense is the government might actually give incentives for this कि आप इंडिया में बनाइए. On top of it, इंडिया में आपको एक रेडी मार्केट, 1 लाख करोड़ का मार्केट असेंबली का दिख रहा है. There is a ready market available for all of these component manufacturers to cater to. And therefore, our belief is there is a possibility that over the next 5 years, you'll have an ecosystem around components which gets developed in India. अब मान लीजिए the phone is getting assembled in India, the components are also getting manufactured in India. तो जो phone का manufacturing का cost है, and because of all the incentives as well, it can actually come down dramatically. So potentially, maybe over the next 5 to 7 to 10 years, we might actually start exporting these phones as well from India. So 5 साल पहले जहां हम पूरी तरह फोन इंपोर्ट करते थे, it was completely imports. We are potentially in this period of say 5 to 10 years, moving to making these phones in India and potentially even exporting these phones in India. So this is a new market or new opportunity which is opened up because of government incentives, and all of this will go into manufacturing. ये जो आप पिछले 10 साल ये जो डेटा दिखा रहा हूं मैं कि मैन्युफैक्चरिंग का शेयर बढ़ रहा है, my sense is some of these, ऐसा एक एग्जांपल दिया मैंने आपको मोबाइल फोन का, there are multiple such initiatives which are happening. इसकी वजह से this share can actually keep going up over the next 5 years or so. So I think this is a very interesting thing. The other very interesting theme is consumption, जो इंडिया में काफी टाइम से चल रहा है. The consumption related theme is something जो पिछले 10 साल से बहुत सारे consumer sector companies ने भी काफी अच्छा किया. अभी right now consumption is going through a bit of a down cycle. Our senses from a medium term perspective, this is another very attractive theme. ऐसे बहुत सारे themes हैं that you can actually invest in. I've just given you 1 or 2 examples. I'll move forward. Now, the next debate is small caps, mid caps, large caps. किसमें invest करना चाहिए? क्या outlook है? What are the risks in each of these categories and what are the benefits in each of these categories? Now, before आगे क्या होने वाला है, it'll be interesting to see कि पिछले 5 साल में क्या हुआ है. If you look at the same historical performance over the last say 1 year, 3 year, 5 years, small and mid caps have done much better than large caps. What is the reason for that? If we look at the composition, अगर आप देखेंगे which are the sectors which have done well, and this chart highlights that. A few sectors can be, जैसे for example ये पूरा जो manufacturing के बारे में बता रहा हूँ, all of these manufacturing companies are actually not doing much. तो 2010 से 2020 तक outlook for manufacturing was not very good, and over the last 3 years or so, the earnings outlook for this sector has improved, and therefore if you look at cap goods as a sector, it has done very well. Another sector which has done very well is real estate. Across markets, जहाँ पे भी आप हैं, you would have noticed that between say 2011-12 to almost 2019-20, real estate में मंदी थी. Real estate was going through a down cycle. Over the last say 2-3 years, you've actually seen an initial uptick in real estate sector, and real estate sector has started to do well, and therefore real estate stocks have also started to do well. But the question is this: suppose as an investor you want to play the real estate theme. Say even about a couple of years back, all the real estate companies were mainly on the mid and small cap side. Their exposure to large caps is very little. The real estate as a sector, even on the machinery side, on the capital goods side, there are just a handful of names on the large cap side, and there are many companies on the mid and small cap side. Because the earnings outlook for some of these sectors has improved a lot, therefore these sectors have done well. The interesting point is this chart. If you look at the weight of some of these sectors, and I call them cyclical growth sectors. ये सब growth sectors हैं, but growth goes through cycles. So the weight of some of these cyclical growth sectors is much higher in mid and small caps as compared to large caps. Now, because the earnings for all of these sectors have started to pick up over the last 2-3 years. Therefore, these sectors and the stocks in these sectors have done very well, because many of these stocks are actually there in mid and small caps. Mid and small cap space in general has done very well. So that is what has happened in the past. Now, what is the outlook for the future? My view is some of these sectors that I talked about, I think the outlook over the next 3 to 5 years for some of these sectors like manufacturing, real estate, consumer discretionary, I think the next 3 to 5 year outlook is also quite healthy for some of these sectors. मेरे हिसाब से ये sector consumer discretionary, manufacturing, real estate वगैरह पिछले अगले 3 से 5 साल भी अच्छा करेंगे. And the sheer fact that there is higher weight in these sectors on mid and small cap side, my outlook for mid and small cap from a 3 to 5 year perspective is reasonably constructive. I think mid and small cap space in general शायद अच्छा कर सकता है अगले 3 से 5 साल भी. This is the good part. The bad part is the risk, the drawdowns. जब and we understand this. जिसने भी market काफी लंबे cycle से देखा है, you know that when mid and small caps underperform, they underperform a lot. अगर आप यही चार्ट देखें, the previous slide पे, over the last 5 years, if you take this example, over the last 5 years, small caps have outperformed large caps a lot. Small cap index is up 27%. Large cap index is up 15%. Again, if you look at the 7-year period, the gap between small cap performance and large cap performance comes down dramatically. Only 2% gap, 14% and 16%. Which means between year 5 and year 7, both 2 साल के period also manages another fund of ours called Franklin India Opportunities Fund. Franklin India Opportunities Fund is a dynamic theme rotation fund. In that scheme, at all points in time, there are 3 core schemes. There are a couple of non-core schemes, themes, and those themes keep changing depending upon the risk-adjusted return opportunities which are there in the market. ये theme हम change करते रहते हैं on a dynamic basis. So Kiran Sebastian manages that particular portfolio and he wants to bring that style to managing multi-cap as well to some extent. I will be the third manager. The fact that I'm a co-manager for the mid and small cap funds for the prima and smaller companies, and for multi-cap also at all points in time, at least 50% of the money will be in mid and small caps. I will be a good sounding board. Sorry, just one second. Someone confirm if I'm visible and audible?
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
fairly audible and visible.
Great, thanks. So, hello.
Yes, you're audible.
Yeah, can continue.
All right. Sorry, my apologies for that. So, finally, so this is the last slide. The framework that we typically use to identify a theme. I thought what I'll do is a quick illustration of how do we identify a theme and how do we translate that to eventual stocks as well. So one such example can be on the consumption side. So let's say the hypothesis is India's GDP growth, as I started with that, India's GDP growth is quite healthy. So India's GDP will keep growing over a period of time. Because of that, our GDP per capita will keep increasing. Now, as GDP per capita keeps increasing, the overall disposable income keeps increasing. I'll give an example. If someone is earning 20,000 rupees per month, the amount of money that he will spend will mainly be on essentials. अगर उसकी salary 20,000 से 50,000 हो रही है, he'll have some extra money to spend on other things. The moment he starts earning 1 lakh, he can actually spend on a lot more things. So, with rising GDP per capita, the disposable income, the extra income for individual will keep increasing. That's a top-down theme. The other top-down theme which typically happens is with rising GDP per capita, people move from rural towns to urban towns. गांव से शहर आते रहते हैं लोग. So that's the other broader thing. What does that do? The thing that will drive in terms of increasing consumption is a subset of sub-themes. One example can be premiumization. When I say premiumization, what do I mean? The moment I have extra money, suppose I was using a motorcycle, I can potentially upgrade to a car. I can start with a basic hatchback. Over a period of time, I can move to a SUV. So that's the increasing affluence premiumization theme. So that's a sub theme that you can identify. One more sub theme can be, let's say, consumer credit. I'll give an example here. In India, out of a population of 150 crore, 150 crore लोग हैं इंडिया में, the number of credit card users is just 4 crores. That's it. In US, of the entire population, roughly 50% of the people have credit cards. Why is the credit card penetration so low in India? Are banks not interested? Banks want to give more credit cards. Banks are interested. Banks को ज़्यादा credit card देना पसंद है. But the reason why they're not doing that is they need a certain amount of income from consumers. Or India में there are very limited population who have that income. Over a period of time, as GDP per capita increases, as people get a lot more income, our assumption is that hopefully the number of credit card users in India will keep going up. Consumer credit will keep going up. This is an example of consumer credit. The other can be, let's say, a financialization of savings. As you get more and more income, your ability to save increases. So hopefully, you will actually start saving money in, let's say, mutual funds. The mutual fund investments will keep going up as your GDP per capita increases. These are how we identify sub-themes. And after that, we drill it down to sectors. Sectors can be many: consumer discretionary, durables, aviation, travel, real estate. We identify a bunch of sectors. And then we use our QGSV framework for stock selection. I'll spend just a minute on the QGSV framework. QGSV stands for Quality, Growth, Sustainability, and Valuation. ये हमारा framework है. And this framework is used across all of the funds, not just the multi-cap fund. I'll start with the G part. Growth. As I said, अगर कोई equity markets में invest कर रहा है, if someone is actually investing in small and mid caps, they predominantly do it for growth. Therefore, our aspiration, as especially on the small cap side, this is especially true for small caps. The aspiration is, आप एक छोटी company खरीदो, that company will grow over a period of time and become a mid cap and a large cap. And as company grows, along with it, the stock price also grows and we make money. So growth is of paramount importance when it comes to investing philosophy that we have at Franklin Templeton. The second thing is sustainability. How sustainable is this growth? Because growth over a 1 to 2 year period is not very attractive. Typically, जब हम Franklin में when we invest, our investment horizon is at least 3 to 5 years. If you're investing in a company right now, we hope to stay invested in this company from a 3 to 5 year perspective and hope that the company actually grows during this entire period. And therefore, the understanding of sustainability of growth is of paramount importance. कि ये growth कितना sustainable है. The third thing on sustainability especially comes from our understanding of the quality of the company. Unless and until the company is a good quality company, we don't think even if there is growth, the growth will be a lot more sustainable. अब जब हम quality की बात करते हैं, what is quality? For us at Franklin Templeton, when we think about quality, there are both quantitative number-specific parameters and there are qualitative parameters. Qualitative parameters can be the quality of promoter, corporate governance, and some of those aspects. The quantitative parameters can be things like the free cash flow generation of the business, the ROC of the business, the ROE of the business. A lot of these quantitative parameters are used. And quality, to my mind, is extremely important in overall investing, but a lot more on small and mid cap investing. And the reason is simple. जब आप large cap में invest कर रहे हो, you are investing in the top 100 companies in India. 90% of these companies will be good quality. लेकिन जब आप small cap में invest कर रहे हो, आपका investment universe 250 के बाद, 250 के बाद, it only starts there. And therefore, you'll have a lot of average quality businesses as well. So the ability of a manager, of a fund manager, to avoid bad quality companies itself is a source of alpha generation. And therefore, we do a lot of work to understand the company that we are actually investing in, is it good quality or not. And the last thing is valuations. The company might be good, it might be in a good sector, it might be growing very well, but if you buy it at the wrong valuation, अगर आप गलत भाव पे खरीदते हो, then it might be a bad investment. And therefore, we need to buy companies at a reasonable valuation. And therefore, we think about our investing style as a growth at a reasonable price. GARP is the broader style, and that is the broad QGSC framework that we have. So that's broadly how we are thinking of managing our multi-cap product. That's it for me. I'll stop here for questions. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Akhil. Thank you once again for such an insightful presentation. I'm sure all the partners having their takeaways ready with them. So I have received few of the questions which I will display on screen. Just a moment. Yeah. Is my question visible to you? I'll just read out for everybody's convenience also. So, what is the primary investment objective of the Franklin Templeton Multicap Fund? I think you have covered in few of your slides, but just give a gist of it.
Sure. So as I said, the primary investment objective will be to have that blend of mid and small caps. So as I said, at all points in time, 50% mid and small cap, 25% large cap, and the remaining 25 will be rotated based on our view. Typically, as I said, our investment objective is QGSV. Typically, we invest from a 3 to 5 year perspective, and therefore, when I'm investing, even in Franklin Templeton Multi-Cap Fund, our objective is from a 3 to 5 year perspective, our unit holders should make reasonable amount of returns. And that is the typical investment objective in which we select stocks and invest as well.
Yes, thank you for the insights. So, my next question to you is what is the benchmark index for this fund and how does it aim to perform relative to this benchmark, basically?
Sure. So as I said, the benchmark will be that multi-cap benchmark which I talked about. It will be a combination of mid-cap, small cap, and large cap. 50% large cap, 25% mid-cap, 25% small cap. So it will be a blended benchmark that we'll have for this particular fund. And I said, our objective is to clearly outperform this particular benchmark, and that is how we will be striving to manage our fund.
Yes, thank you so much for the answer. So, third question is how often will the fund management team review and rebalance the portfolio?
I think the review and rebalance portfolio is an ongoing task. It happens almost on a daily basis. It is not that we are not looking at the portfolio on a daily basis. At all points in time, you're continuously rebalancing. There are two parts of rebalancing here. One is in terms of individual stocks and the portfolio construction, what comes in and what goes out. That is a daily process that will keep happening, and all the time you'll be thinking about that. The second type of rebalancing is our weights on the small, mid, and large cap side, which I talked about, right? And we have a three-factor framework. The objective is the three of us sit together at least once a month. Mr. Janaki Raman, Kiran, as well as I. All three of us will sit together once a month, review the three-factor framework, and think about how do we allocate between large, mid, and small. So the way the portfolio will be constructed and the way we are thinking about it is we will run three model portfolios. There'll be one model portfolio of large cap, one model portfolio of mid cap, one model portfolio of small cap, and how we allocate the weights will be a function of the three-factor framework between large, mid, and small. So that process we are thinking of, that rebalancing we are thinking of doing on a monthly basis. But individual stock selection and that rebalancing is almost a daily exercise.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Thank you for bringing clarity for all our audience. So, moving to next, how does the fund intend to manage market volatility and downturns?
Absolutely. So there are two parts to managing market volatility and downturns. So first is exposure itself. As I said, and as I've been highlighting, generally small and mid caps tend to be a lot more volatile than large caps. And therefore, using our three-factor framework, when we see potential risks being higher for small and mid caps because of the market volatility, our aspiration will be to have much higher exposure to large caps versus small and mid caps at that particular point in time. That is exactly where the three-factor framework, which I just talked about, comes into play. That is point number one. Point number two is one of the reasons why small and mid caps generally turns to underperform a lot during downturns and market volatility is purely from a liquidity perspective, because the liquidity in small caps rise up during downturns. For that, we have a very robust risk management framework within our organization. Thanks to Franklin Templeton being a global organization, the risk practices that we have are global risk practices, which are far more stringent as compared to an average market practice, is what our expectation is. Some of the things such as the clear emphasis is on the free float market cap instead of just market cap when we're thinking about it from a liquidity perspective. And we have a very solid risk team which continuously monitors all our funds purely on some of these parameters such as liquidity risks. So a combination of these two things in terms of relative allocation between mid, small, and large, and a very robust risk management framework is how we intend to manage market volatility in downturns.
Right. Right. Thank you for giving the brief of it. So, yes, moving to next. I think this you have already covered in your presentation. What are the risk factor associated investing in the multi-cap fund?
Sure. As I said, so typically the way you're thinking about multi-cap is it is more aggressive diversification. So a typical flexi cap, as I said, will have 70% large caps, but this will have 50% mid and small at all points in time. And therefore, a more volatile the market is, especially from a near-term perspective, higher the volatility for multi-cap versus a large cap as well as the broader markets. So that I think is the more specific risk factor associated with any multi-cap fund and not just this.
Correct. Thank you for explaining once again. What is the TER, total expense ratio of this fund, and how does it compare to other similar funds?
Sure. I think, do you want to chip in for that?
Sure.
Yeah. Uh, so, the total TER is dependent upon how much AUM we collect in this fund. So we'll get to know about the total TER once we have the total collection in hand. So wait till the NFO reopens. You will get to know by end of this month. Thank you so much.
Surely. Surely. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Moving to next question, what criteria are used for selecting the stock within the fund's portfolio?
So that is precisely the
this
last
also,
illustration which we
yes,
talked about.
yes. I think you have covered. So we are moving to next. Thank you. How does the fund incorporate environmental, social, and governance factor into its investment decisions?
Absolutely.
Yes, this is
ESG is very
important one.
critical. Yes, ESG is a very important factor in terms of investment decisions, right? And we have an internal way to assess the overall environmental, social, and governance risks. Between these three factors, the most important one that we continuously monitor is on the governance side. And I talked a lot about quality when I talked about our QGSP framework. So ESG is part of our quality. And within that, governance is of absolute importance because if the governance standards are not great, even though the company might be good, as a minority shareholder, my ability to make money out of that business will be very low. And there's a lot of work that we do. Similarly, on the environmental and social side as well, these are risks that we monitor at all points in time. But a lot more we think about it from an opportunity perspective because the ESG factors actually are giving multiple new opportunities as well. So if you look at our Franklin India Opportunities Fund, one of the themes that we had identified was the sustainable living and the entire energy transition scheme theme. That where it's all about the environment and how that is actually creating a lot more investment opportunities. So this is not only from a risk perspective, we think about ESG from an investment decision making process as opportunities as well.
Thank you for the brief answer. What type of investors are most suitable for this fund, and what should be the time horizon for investing in this fund?
Absolutely. I think anyone with a moderate risk appetite. Moderate risk appetite is very suitable. If someone has extremely low risk appetite, then probably this is not the investment for them. But anyone with even a moderate risk appetite is a good investor for multi-cap. And more importantly, the investment horizon, as I said, the way we think about investments as well, typically should be, in our opinion, at least 3 to 5 years, if not longer. The longer, the better. But at least from a 3 to 5 year perspective, if an investor is coming in, that is what we would suggest.
Yes. So I think we are done with the set of questions that we have received from all our partners. So thank you once again. I would really like to extend a heartfelt thanks to you for taking on the responsibility of handling the Franklin Templeton Multicap Fund. As we prepared for the fund's launch on 8th of July 2024, your expertise and dedication are truly appreciated, Akhil. And I would like to encourage all our partners to actively participate in this NFO, given the strong performance of other funds of Franklin Templeton. I'm confident that this new offering is going to be a great success. And thank you once again, Akhil, for your leadership and commitment. Let's work together to make this NFO a remarkable achievement. Thank you, audience. Thank you, all the participants who have spent their time for attending this event. Thank you once again. Thank you, Akhil, to you and your team. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. With this, we are concluding the session. Thank you all. Thank you all for joining in. Yeah.